Welcome to the Entrepreneur Show. This is your host, Michael Marra. I'm the CEO and founder of Entre, a social network for entrepreneurs, investors, and freelancers. On this show, we interview the top CEOs, venture capitalists, angel investors, and founders. Connect with me and thousands of other like-minded people by signing up for free at joinentre.com or download our mobile app on iOS and Android. Today's episode is with Joe Foster, the founder of Reebok, the legendary shoe company. This was a very special episode because we actually recorded this live on Clubhouse, and I was also accompanied by one of the investors and advisors we have here at Entre, Simon Squibb. He's a serial entrepreneur from the UK as well. So he joined me on this interview with Joe. We dive into the full Reebok story, how it started, how it's grown to become what it is to today. And it's really fascinating to hear Joe's perspective of the company currently, where they should go. And he also takes some audience Q&A as well. So really hope you enjoy this episode.
Joe, I mean, you have such an incredible story. I want to let people understand how this all started, because your family has been making shoes since before 1900. And you made some of the first cleats for, Olympic athletes and so many incredible people. I mean, it's a ridiculous story. I also don't think a lot of people know that it started in England, and it's a British company, which is so fascinating. Take us back to how things started with your family, how you started all this with your brother. I know it had a different name when you started as well, and then you switched it to Reebok. So walk us back through that and how all of this got started. I don't know if you want to share about your family business and then how Reebok came, but I'll give you the floor to share your origin story however you like.
Well, let me get going. I can tell you the story and it'll take you quite some time. So please, whenever you want to butt in, because once I start, the story goes on, as in the book. But yeah, the Foster family, my grandfather, yes, born in Bolton, that's a northern England town. In fact, north of England really is the true homeland of all sports. You can think of soccer, rugby, all those sports. So much was started off in the north of England. So this is why my grandfather, part of a running club, local running club, but also a cobbler. He decided he wanted to be a cobbler. And he used to visit his grandfather. And his grandfather lived in Nottingham. And his grandfather was a cobbler also. But his grandfather used to repair shoes, street shoes, but he also repaired cricket boots. Now, cricket boots in those days had spikes in the bottom. And why did he have spikes in? Probably grandfather said why. And his grandfather said, oh, Joe, they had spikes to give them grip. They needed grip when the guy is bowling or batting or out in the field on grass. They don't want to slip. A nice light bulb moment for my grandfather. Back home in Bolton, he thought, he wasn't a good runner. He was about halfway down the field on any event. And so he decided he'd make himself a pair of shoes, running shoes, and put spikes in the bottom, which he did. The next race he was in, he came a very unlikely second, which of course raised a lot of attention, spikes in the bottom of shoes. So grandfather is now credited with either inventing or certainly being the pioneer of not only the running shoe, but also the training shoe. He invented the training shoe. But so in 1895, a 15-year-old Joe Foster comes second in a race, very unlikely, but it starts his business. Everybody wanted a pair of his shoes. By 1900, he decided, at the age of 20, I'm going to open my own business, which he did. And that was the start of the J.W. Foster and Sons athletic shoes, which became really renowned worldwide. But in 1904, he had 3 world records by Alf Shrub. Alf Shrub was, a local athlete, very nationally well known. And in Glasgow, in one event, he broke 3 world records and also ran the farthest distance ever in 1 hour. That was the beginning of Joe Foster's business. During that first decade of the 1900s, he got many Olympic gold medals as well. Then what happened? We had the second decade, World War I. World War I, who wanted running shoes? Nobody wanted running shoes. But they changed their business to repairing army boots and scrubbing the mud of Flanders off the boots coming back for repair. and which my father recalled to me was more red with blood than brown with mud. Quite odd, but you think about it back in those days. So at the end of that, we come to 1920. We're in 1920, and we do have a replica letterhead from that time. And on it, it is quoted that J. Edward Foster made all the athletic shoes for the Olympics at Antwerp in 1920. I mean, that's incredible, but we must remember the Olympics were not quite as big as they are these days. But through the 1920s, that's my grandfather's Berry Pop era. That is when he had so many gold medals. He almost everybody winning a gold medal on track and field did so in Joe Foster's shoes. Now, I don't know if any of you can remember the film Chariots of Fire. Chariots of Fire about 3 athletes. Eric Liddell, he was a Scot, Harold Abraham, and Lord Burleigh. And they all won gold medals during that period, and they were immortalized in this film Chariots of Fire. Well, Joe Foster made their shoes, and he had many, many Olympic gold medals to his name. But also, and I refer again back to this replica letterhead, there are 96 teams mentioned that were being supplied by J.W. Foster. Now, you'll find it very difficult to mention a football team in the United Kingdom. I'm not on that list. I think the only one I can, after searching it, is Tottenham Hotspur, but Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Everton, Glasgow Rangers, Celtic, all these teams, he supplied them with not only a training shoe, but also with football boots. And I wonder today, what happened to that business? Why did we lose that out to people like Adidas and others? Well, I guess the story will come to light as we go along. But, unfortunately, my grandfather died in 1933. He was young. He was only 53, and I wasn't born then. In fact, I wasn't born until 1935. But by whatever chance it happens, I was born on his birthday, the 18th of May. And grandmother, she was a real firebrand. She insisted I brought my name with me. So I became Joe Foster as well, taking his name. Okay, I'm born in 1935. 4 years later, we have World War II. And for 6 years, we have blackouts and whatever that brings. But you're young, you're just a child, you're a kid, you don't know any different. This was fun. We enjoyed whatever we enjoyed, and everything that we did, no problems. So we come to the end of World War II, and I am 10 years old, normal childhood with the church. The church was where you went to, and everything social. In fact, the church where you went to, they had everything. They had tennis courts, they had bowling greens, they had snooker clubs, they had the Scouts and the Cubs, and we were in the Scouts. And that prepared us pretty well for life. Jeff and myself grew up with the Scouts. Jeff joined the J. Edward Foster Company when he was 14. I didn't join until I was 17. So I joined the company in 1952. Then, because at that time we were having national service, Jeff and I, at the same time, we went off to do 2 years of national service. I did mine in the Air Force, stayed in the UK, but Jeff was in Germany. And what did he see? Well, he saw Adidas, he saw Puma. Of course, we know Adidas and Puma, we've heard a lot about them, but they were doing something different. They were making different shoes. They were moving the business on. And so when we came back 2 years later, we'd grown up. Mother hadn't been making our bed, making our breakfast, looking after us, doing our washing. We had to look after ourselves for quite some time during those 2 years. So coming back from national service, we come back and we back into the company. And it's not long before we look at this company and we find we're working for a failing company. Why was it failing? Well, my father and his brother, my uncle, had taken over the business when father had died. And what we didn't know is that they just never got on together. At that time, really the boss of the company was my grandmother. She kept them together, she kept the business going. Unfortunately, when grandmother died, whatever had driven my brother and my father and his brother apart, it really came up. They didn't speak to each other. In fact, they fought. Jeff and myself, on more than one occasion, had to pull them apart. What are you doing? And we were trying to say, look, the company needs to modernize. We need to get salesmen. We need to get a plan. We need to know where we're going. We need to start designing new products. Foster's were still making the same product that we're making in the 1930s, which, of course, by the late 1950s, people didn't want that. They were moving on. It took us till 1958, all the efforts that we'd done to try to get the changes, nothing. We had to leave the company. But in that meantime, Jeff and I, we'd gone to college in the evenings. We'd studied how to make shoes. Okay, we knew how to make running shoes, at least the way that the Fosters were making them, but we didn't know how to make them the way that Adidas and other people. So we learned all about shoes. But going to college gave us more than just learning. It gave us people that we could relate to, people we could talk to. So when we decided to leave the company, leave J.W. Foster's because there was nowhere to go, we had people to talk to. So we could buy machinery, we could get help. We knew now where to get leathers from, where to get all our bits and pieces. So we'd learned a lot at that point. But we rented a building 6 miles away from the Foster's building in Bolton, and the next town we got buried. And it was an old brewery. In fact, it was the Berry Brewing Company. And for whatever reason, they had this big building, quite a big mill type building. It had 3 floors. The bottom floor, no windows. That may have been something to do with the brewery. I don't know. I have no idea. But the bottom floor, no windows. The top floor, well, that was fine. But the roof was absolutely shut up. And we had more buckets and tin cans and anything we could gather to collect the water that was coming through. So the only thing that was left for us was the middle floor. And the middle floor was not too clever. And with the weight of our machines, we had to put the machinery around the edges because we were a bit too worried that if we put it in the middle, one of these days we would end up in the ground floor. So that was our beginning. And fine, Jeff loved just making shoes. But he also, Jeff was also an athlete. He was a runner, and he was a cyclist. Me, I played badminton. We go back to the church days where that's why we played badminton. So I played badminton, but Jeff was a runner, so we picked up quite a few runners who would buy shoes from us. We started off with cycling. Jeff was a cyclist, and we advertised in the magazine called Cycling. We got nice orders. But what we also got is a local athlete who came in and said, look, I'm out every day cycling. Why don't I take some of your shoes and call on the local cycle shops and see if I could sell some shoes? And he did. Amazingly enough, our business started to grow. But then, because we were advertising in cycling, we got an inquiry from a man in London. He was a Scotsman. He'd moved down to London, and he was a salesman, and he used to sell, I think, bike frames and wheels and whatever. And he suggested he would like to sell our shoes. Wow, well, why not? Well, we never expected the results we got. We got so many orders. They just came in every week. He was sending these orders in, hundreds of birds. We had to increase our production. We had to get more people working for us. Fantastic. This was great. Our business was growing, really doing it. And 18 months later, suddenly the orders stopped. Nothing. And if we're going back to sort of the very late 50s, early 60s, telephones, people didn't have mobile telephones. We didn't have computers. The means of communication was a letter. And we're waiting for his letter, but nothing. 2 or 3 weeks later, a letter came from his landlady saying, do we owe him any money? And we went, why was this? And then she carried on in a letter to say, well, he had been killed in a road accident 2 or 3 weeks ago. This is the reason why we lost all our orders. Our business, our cycle shoe business, suddenly, it had gone. Luckily for us, or possibly it's the way that we were working at that time, our athletics business started to grow. and we were selling running shoes pretty nicely. But I used to, in fact, I'm taking my own medicine when I said to my father, we need somebody to go out and sell our shoes, we need salesmen. I decided I would go and be the salesman. I'm in the car, I go around to shops and retailers, and I'm trying to sell Reebok. One or two people had heard of us, and one or two people were very kind and decided, yes, well, I'll try for you. But the vast majority looked at me and said, who's Reebok? Well, I tried to explain who Reebok was. And then they would say, why do I need Reebok? And that was the question that really stuck me. Why did I need Reebok? They say, I've got Adidas, pointing to a show, and I've got Dunlop, pointing to another show. Why do I need Reebok? And that struck home to me because I realized they were a retailer. They sold everything. Oh, studs for boots, darts, all the bits and pieces you would find in a sports shop in those days. Why did they need Reebok? They didn't. So, okay, we were a small company. We used to sell shoes out of the back of our car. We used to go around to meetings and races, and we would sell shoes. And it struck me that these are my customers. These runners are my customers. How do I get to them? Well, very fortunately, we had something called 3As, which is the Amateur Athletic Association. And the 3As, they produced a handbook. And that handbook had in it, 250, 300, maybe more clubs affiliated. And we had the name and address of every secretary. Didn't have much thinking about. I had a letter going out to all the secretaries that next week, offering them mail order, which I suppose right now everybody knows that. But in those days, it was not a big thing. But I offered them 15% off, and I offered the secretary to either become an agent, or if he had somebody in the club that would like to be an agent, they could have the job and have the 15%. I got loads of agents, and our business started working. Really grew nicely. To the point, in fact, where those retailers who said to me, why do I need Reebok? They started coming on the telephone and saying, look, I believe you're selling your shoes direct to athletes. We'd be happy to stock your shoes if you stop selling to athletes. And I guess I'd learned my lesson enough to say, well, look, we're not going to stop selling to athletes. We only give them a small discount, which you can give if they're part of the club. But we'll give you wholesale prices. And I think that 9 out of 10 of the retailers accepted that. So our business grew, and it grew nicely. It grew so much that we became known as the athletic shoe company in the UK. If you wanted to go to anybody, if you wanted an athletic shoe, you wanted Reebok. So much so that a friend of mine who was head of sales on a company that made football boots, he asked me if we'd let them become our distributor for the UK and other countries. And I thought, well, yeah, okay, we'll try that. So we did. That would give me time to think of other things, think where we're going and what's next. The unfortunate thing about that relationship was that after 2 years, it died because the man who was running the company, Lawrence, Mr. Lawrence, he decided to move on. His son-in-law took over the company, and his son-in-law just didn't know how to run it. They made some big mistakes, but the problem was that they were not paying us for the product, so I had to recover the product. But when we're talking about this company, well, this company that we set off in 1958 as Mercury Sports Footwear. Mercury, nice name. We use the winged messenger as our logo. And it was 18 months into it when our accountant had said, Joe, you need to register this name because anybody else sees that these are doing so well, they might start copying and making Mercury shoes. Okay, what does that mean? Well, we have to go to the registrar. So to the registrar we went, and we found that Mercury was already pre-registered. Yes, it was offered to us. It was offered to us for £1,000, which, like, was about, if you think about what you could afford, multiply it by 10, and that was it to us. We were a small company. We were making a living. We weren't not making a fortune. So he said, well, you're going to have to change your name. Go and see a patent agent. Went to a patent agent in Manchester, and he had his window open. He pointed to a sign. He said, Kodak. And I said, why Kodak? And he said, it means nothing. It's a made-up name. So nobody can claim that they own it or pre-registered it. Right. So I go back, we sit around the table, we've got to think up names. Well, we're a sports company, what do we do? Think of birds, like falcon. Yeah, falcon, that would be a nice name. Or cougar. We came up with a nice list. But in 1948, I'm a youngster of 8 years old, and we have these stay-at-home events, and I run a running race, a 60-yard race, and my prize was a dictionary. But it wasn't just an ordinary dictionary, it was an American dictionary, a Webster's dictionary. At the time, I didn't know that meant any different to anything. I do know now, as an American dictionary, a lot of spellings are different. However, we're sitting down now, we've got Mercury, and we've got to change our name. And we've got these 10 names of birds and animals. And I thought, I like that letter R. So I started thumbing through my Webster's dictionary and came across R-W-B-O-K. R-W-B-O-K, what's that? And that was a small South African gazelle. Gazelle, wow, yes, fast, why not? I put this top of the list. And I went back to our patent day, and I said, but this one here, Reebok, we love that. We need it. We want that to be our name because we've got to be in love with it. It's going to be our passion. Okay, as it happens, a week later, agent came back and said, well, believe it or not, this is the only name. Reebok is the only name that is free from any infringements or problems that you would have in doing the register. Oh, great, let's do that. But well, the registrar has said he can only put you in Part B of the register. And again, I'm just a shoemaker, confused. What do you mean Part B of the register? And he was saying, well, if anybody wants to make shoes out of Reebok skin, we can't stop them. Okay, we thought that was a bit of a sort of outside opportunity that would never happen. However, 20 years later, the registrar came back and said, we've moved you to the A section of the register. Right. He said, everybody now knows that Reebok is a shoe. It's a sports shoe. It is no longer an animal. Wow. So we became Reebok. That was it. Everybody knew Reebok. I've moved that one forward 20 years, but what we're doing is we're growing a nice business. We'd had a problem. We also had a problem with Adidas. We'd only been in business 4 years, and our silhouette on the side of the shoe was two bars down it and a T-bar. Adidas, of course, the 3 stripes. And their solicitors had written to us to say that we were infringing their trademark. And well, rather than being upset about this, we were highly delighted. Wow, well, we've been recognized. Adidas recognizes that we must something that was flipped. Fantastic. So we didn't worry about the fact we just changed our silhouette. And we changed it to what you see now, which is the vector, which is the arrow shape and then the cross stripe. Which you got to say, well, would you have planned that? Or was that luck? What is it? But it did become much more significant silhouette. But now we're talking, we're into the 60s. In 1968, and I'm thinking, how do we expand our business? Adidas, they're taking the football business. They're taking the football business before Jeff and I left the Foster's business. And there was no room in there for us. It would have been too expensive to try. But I thought, well, why not try America? Because America, I know that in America, every university, every college has a coach. And coach is God. And you can get a scholarship to go to college, an athletic scholarship. This is where the big market is. So by chance, 1968, I'm reading a magazine, it's a sports magazine, and advertising in there is what was then the Board of Trade, the British government, saying if anybody in the sports trade would like to expand their business into export, we'd like to help you. And the first thing we'd like to do is to introduce you to the American NSGA show. That's the National Sporting Goods of America. And their exhibition goes on in February. And we will pay for a stand for you to show your product. And we'll also pay for your return first. And we'll pay half of your hotel bill. Seemed a good idea to me. Seemed like a good offer. So I persuaded a friend of mine, Bob Brigham. He was actually in the airport industry. They're now called Ellis Brigham. I persuaded him to join me. So yes, off we went to America. We took a very odd ticket. Even though the government were paying, we decided to save the money by taking the ticket there and back, which was cheaper than single one ways for 4 days. But we were taking 6 days for the expedition. We stayed there for 14 days. So we started off in New York, and we went to look at the shops, sports shops, not look to the airport shops. Then on to Chicago. And Chicago in February. Anybody who's listening from America and knows Chicago in February will know that it is exceedingly cold. It was bitter. But, we're young. Why not? So off we go. Bob got some orders for some boots that we were making for him. I didn't get any orders. And the guys would come to me and say, like your product, where do I get them from? And get them from England. England. Is that New England? No. This is not Connecticut, whatever. This is not New England. It's England. That seemed to pop them off. Nobody seemed to want to buy a shoe and import it. I had imported shoes. I would supply Frank Shorter, Bill Rogers, you might know those names, way back names, and they loved our shoes. We had Ron Hill. Ron Hill won the Boston Marathon, so our shoes were known for that, but no one wanted to. However, we're talking about the late 1960s, and as it happened, Runner's World, if you're into running, you may know of Runner's World. Runner's World was just a single sheet of paper. And but it started to raise the running as something to do. Fitness events started. So we're going all the way through the 1970s. And I'm going backwards and forwards to America. It took me until 1979. I started in 1968. 1979, I found my distributor. That was Paul Fiber. But how did I find him? We come back to the running. Runner's World was growing massively. It started off as a single black and white, and by the mid-1970s, it was a very glossy, full-colour magazine. And the people who were reading this were millions, but they were buying running shoes. But of course, we were not in America. How did we get that? Well, Bob Anderson started to think, obviously, that he was good at this, so he started rating shoes. People were advertising, Nike included, and he would give this shoe a number one. This is a number one shoe. Well, the problem with that was that a million people wanted that same shoe once he said it was a number one. And in terms of Nike, yeah, they were getting their shoes from in those days in Japan. But to turn up production for what that being a number one demanded was just impossible. It took 6-9 months to get that. By which time, Bob Anderson's coming out with his next number one shoe. The retail trade hated that. So I think with knowledge of this, Bob Anderson decided he'd better change. And instead of rating number 1, 2, 3, 4, he started 5-star ratings. He started with 5 stars at the top and worked his way down. This was my key. This is what I needed. This I was sure was a hook. If we could get a 5-star shoe, surely we would make it to America. So the design was Aztec. If you read the book, you'll find it's in there. And you'll find we had some fun actually designing the shoe. And I designed the sole, and my brother, he just put the colorways together. And when I asked him why I put those colorways, because it was unusual, red and yellow striping. And he said, well, they're the only two I had. So, okay. But it looked good. It really looked good. And we tested it in Edmonton, and a lot of people loved the shoe. That was the Commonwealth Games. So by February of 1979, I had what we call the gold range. The Aztec was our trainer, Midas was our low racing shoe, and Inca was our spike track shoe. So I'm armed with our gold range in February 1979. And along came Kmart. By that time, running was so big, Kmart wanted to get into the business. And Kmart wanted £25,000. And okay, wow, £25,000, that's a small factory back in Bolton, what could that do? And that was about 6 months' work. But, you know, we hadn't got into this thinking, well, let's hope we get a 5-star. We got into it knowing this will be a 5-star, so we will need help. A friend of mine again at Barter, they'd just moved into sports shoes. They were never recognised in sport, but at least they could make shoes. He said, we'll make it, if you want some volume, we'll make it. Good. But Kmart said, yeah, but we need it cheaper. We need a better price. Again, we realised that the business of footwear and athletic footwear was moving to the Far East, and at that particular time to South Korea. So I made contact with people in South Korea. In fact, they had an agent in London who we'd been in contact with. So we knew we could probably better the price if we won this one with 5 stars. But also at February NSGA show in 1979, along came Paul Fireman. Paul and his brother and his brother-in-law, they ran an outdoors wholesale company called Boston Camping. Boston Camping, obviously in Boston, but I think he was a little bit tired doing the same things. He'd seen the shoe industry grow and he'd seen what was happening. And he said, Joe, I'd love to be your distributor. But he said, to be honest, I could only do that if you had a 5-star shoe. Paul, come here. I took him to look at our Aztec. I said, it's not yet got a 5-star on it, but I'm sure this will. We met a few times after that, before the shoe issue was due out. It was due out in August. In fact, it was due out the last week in July. So I phoned Paul. It was about midday for me, but it was almost 7 a.m. for Paul, so it was a bit weary when he answered the telephone. And I said, Paul, can you go down to the local kiosk? The Runner's World will be in there, fresh in. Can you get one and see what happened? Because it wouldn't be over in the UK for another month. 1 hour later, he came back. He said, Joe, Aztec, 5 stars. Wow. We hit the ceiling. That was it. That must be it. Must be. But he said, Joe, also, Midas and Inca, they also got 5 stars in their category. So that was us. We were now entering America with 3 5-star shoes. That was the hook. That's what really got Reebok and took Reebok from being a small British North of England company. Its first step to become global. But Reebok was doing very nicely with running. Paul he got lots of agents who were growing nicely. And then there's this guy. He was a technical rep, named Arnold Martinez, and he was a technical rep in Los Angeles. And his wife Frankie was coming home every other day with her girlfriends, and they were full of this new thing called aerobics. And he said, "What is it?" And she said, "Well, we're exercising to music, and it's fabulous, absolutely incredible." Arnold was very interested in it. Next time, he said, "I'm going to come down with you, Frankie," which he did. And he saw the instructor, and she's just wearing a pair of running shoes. Half the class are wearing similar shoes. The other half, no shoes at all. For Arnold, that was a light bulb moment. He saw, why don't we make these girls a nice, soft leather upper, cushion sole, specifically for aerobics? Great idea. off he went to see Paul Fireman in Boston. Paul, look, there's this idea. Frankie and our friends, they're in this, it's new, it's aerobics, and it's going to be brilliant. Paul said, just a minute, man, we're doing great, we're running, we're expanding, we're doing, what do we want to do? Making a few shoes for some girls who are doing this exercise down in LA. He wasn't impressed at all. But that didn't stop Arnold. Arnold decided he'd go to the back door and have a word with the production people. And he said, look guys, this is what I want. A nice, a lot of leather upper, nice cushioned, so just made for women's size last. Can you get me 200 pounds? And I'll see what happens. He got his 200 pounds. He distributed them to trainers and to some of the girls and to the instructors. And that was it. Reebok all of a sudden was set on fire. People like Jane Fonda, she was wearing them in her workout videos. And it just went wild. The girls would buy them. They would use them to go to the job, everywhere. They would go to the job in the nice white aerobic shoes, taking the heels or whatever else and changing them. All of a sudden, this exploded. And when I say all of a sudden, it took a few years for it to really go, but in America it started. And we had a company then doing $9 million in business, which moved the following year to $30 million, then to $300 million, then $900 million. We're talking about successive years. And that is really the Reebok story, how we really exploded. And by 1979, when I decided it was time for me to walk away from it, 1989, the end of 1989, I decided we're a $4 billion company. We're full of accountants. We're full of lawyers. We're full of people who are selling millions of shoes. And all I had done, well, during the 10 years previous to that, I had actually gone, I was going around the world about 3 times a year and putting on distribution. I was building the global distribution, and I built it to about $1 million. I put 30 distributors on. And by that time, I decided that it was no longer that excitement, that challenge that it had been, and that there were other people probably better capable, more capable than I was now of taking this for the next step. So I moved out, and because all I'd been doing, all I ended up doing was being on an airplane, 35,000 feet, arriving at whatever destination, being picked up by a limousine, being taken to the best hotels, and then the best restaurants, and we'd have meals, and we'd just talk about business. But that wasn't the business. So it was time for me to retire. But in retiring, and I must say, I did walk away in 1979, and I spent some 1989, and I spent some time relaxing. But it was a bit like the Eagles in Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave. And I guess I've always been brought back to the company for different and various reasons, and I'm still involved as much as I can be. But that is my story. And if you buy the book Shoemaker, I think you'll find that there's a little bit more detail in that.
Joe, what an incredible story. Frankly, the easiest thing I've ever done. I've just sat back with my cup of tea and enjoyed every single moment of that. Joe, really an iconic story, and thank you for taking the time to share it with us.
It's a pleasure.
There were some things I noted that I think takeaways maybe for the audience from kind of your real life experience, which I think it's just incredible. If a Scotsman in London would like to sell your product, say yes. Trademark your brand. Trademark your brand. So many people register a company and get the URL, and they don't think about the trademark piece, and they get caught out. You were lucky to have someone in your office highlight it. But, trademark your brand. Innovation is hard with legacy. Your existing family business. I totally resonate with that story. Sometimes to innovate, if you're a company that's finding it hard to innovate, just open up a new company 6 miles away and look to compete with it. I think that's a pretty interesting model. You've kind of solved the innovation dilemma for a lot of people with that story, I think.
Right.
I love the embrace the hard moments, even when Adidas come after you. The way you explain it is almost like, yeah, great, they're coming after us, you know, like, whereas I think most people are like, oh no, that enormous company's coming after us. But I love that embrace the hard moments, the way you explain it. I also love the branding. I mean, I sit in a lot of personal sessions with people designing branding. It's like, why these colors? I love the statement, you know, you said, oh, we only have these two available, so that's why we're making it these colors, you know. That's how you create an iconic brand sometimes, right? Don't overthink, which I really love. And I love the whole story about how you got into the US. I think you said 1968 to 1979. That's how long it took you to find a US partner. I mean, that is never give up, t-shirt worthy. You know, like that's not an overnight success, as people always, you know, look at companies like Reebok and think, right? That's persistence over time. So real inspiration. And I guess my question before we open it up to the audience to come and ask you some questions, and Michael I know has a question too, but I have so many questions for you, but my main one is, I think, Joe, you've got so much energy. You know, Reebok is rumored to be up for sale. Do you want to buy it?
Well, I think at my age it would be a rash decision not to try to buy Reebok. I think it needs something new now, and I'm very happy to be here. And I've said this to quite a few people now that if you want some inspiration, if you want somebody to talk to, if you want somebody to say what would you do in this instance, I'm here. Yeah. It needs now that new dimension. We were talking earlier that everything was done by letter. We didn't even have mobile. We very rarely had phones, never mind mobile phones. So mobile phones now have computers, and we have what's going on today, and this podcasting and how people can talk to each other. If I wanted to talk to somebody, I had to get on an airplane. I had to go and see Paul Farming. I had to go to the Far East. I had to build 50 different distributions worldwide. All these things, I had to travel. So, yeah, I couldn't do that again now. And now, well, I think I can sort of sit here. People can come to me, or I can go to them with a telephone. But and that's where I'll be most useful.
Why do I feel, Joe, you've got a notepad right next to you that says what Reebok should do next?
Not quite.
Yeah, probably I do.
yeah. And so, if they're listening, you know, any tips, any quick thoughts? I mean, first of all, as well, I'd just like to say, you know, your story about getting a runner to take your shoes. That was, you were basically also the founder, in my mind, listening to that story, of this influencer marketing stuff, which you know now is so popular, right? That story is actually way before influencer marketing became standard terminology in everybody's marketing handbook. You were pioneering it by the sounds of it. That's important to highlight that. But yeah, what would you do? Anything?
Well, I think right now, of course, it's been under the influence of Adidas. Adidas bought Reebok for one purpose, and that was to improve Adidas's presence in the USA, which it did. And if you pay almost $4 billion for it, you're entitled to do that. So now, if they're going to let Reebok go, which they seem to be, and you look back at Reebok, then it puts me back to the time when we need USA. That is the market. That's where sport really takes off. So I think Reebok now have just got to concentrate in the USA again, and got to become something big again. They're hardly recognizable now in USA, but we go back to the 1990s, early 1990s. We had 60% of the American market, which is incredible. So there's a lot of people out there who remember this brand. And I'm hoping, because we're working hard now to get the book to become a bestseller, so we can get the book to become a bestseller. Maybe there's a bit of an edge there that'll make people remember Reebok coming back on the market. So America, that's what's got to happen. We've got to re-energize the American market. Adidas took them away from performance. They didn't allow Reebok to work on performance sports. No, they've got to go back to performance, spectator sports. They've got to, if they want to become number one again, and that's where I would aim. I would aim to become number one again. You can't get there on the first step. The first step is got to be rework the American market, concentrate on what you've got, fitness, and there's still some emotion there in basketball, but depends on the money you've got to spend and how you want to focus it. But focus the American market and the rest we can work very nice and easy. The global business will come easy.
First step marketing plan. I can see that being the headline. If they're listening in, they should write that down, Joe. Good strategy. Now, I know Michael's got a question, and then we're going to go to the audience for questions. So if anyone wants to ask a question of Joe, put up your hand now. But Michael, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon and Joe. This has been fantastic. I've just been sitting here smiling the whole time as you were telling the story and just getting so inspired. So, really, really fantastic. And thanks for, really diving deep into it. I thought that was really important for people to understand your entire background and understand how long it actually took you to get Reebok to a global brand. I'm curious now, based on what you were saying too, in the U.S. market and in getting Reebok back into fitness, what brands do you think are doing it well right now? And have you been paying attention to some of these up and coming brands like Gymshark?
Well, yes, indeed, we know Gymshark, and I think that they're a good example of being focused. You don't see any sideway, anything at the side of Gymshark. It's Gymshark. You know where they are. They're in fitness, and they're doing very well. I think the problem with Reebok, whilst they've been with Adidas, is Adidas changed the letter styling of the name. They changed the silhouette, and I think that diluted the brand for many years. 2 years ago, they came back. I think they got themselves a new marketing man, and they came back and they brought back the Vector and they brought back the Motortectura with the drop R that had always been known as Reebok. And I think now people are beginning to see it again. But I think Reebok do need to focus now. And yes, we do know Under Armour, we do know these new brands, and like you say, Gymshark is probably the latest to have grown well on the market. We're not interested in where they go anymore. What we're interested in is, do Reebok look at fitness and decide we've got to get our name better known there? They use Les Mills and they use CrossFit, but those are two names: CrossFit, Les Mills. What about Reebok? Do Reebok go into gyms? Do they own gyms? Is that the way to do it, or do you do licensing? There are lots of questions to sit down and decide, but it is a marketing plan. And yes, there are other people about. We have to have a young approach. We have to do it. But now, not way back in 50s. 50s, we've got such a good reputation. We've got so many things that we can call upon. But we've got to be at the present. And I think this is an opportunity now. It's just going back to the problems I had. But right now, this is a tremendous opportunity for Reebok. And if they're excited, and if they're ready to be a winner, turn the company back into a winning company and grow that culture. It's got to be part of the culture is we're a winning company, and just go for it.
Love it. It seems like you still have so much passion in the Reebok and in the brand, and it's incredible. You're 85. You're still talking with so much delight about Reebok and the brand that you built, and you have all these ideas and all this stuff. It seems like honestly, you could take over things right now if you wanted to. Again, it's really inspiring to hear this.
I think Michael and I are saying we're ready to work for you, Joe.
Let's do it.
I'm making a podcast show. We could do a Reebok podcast show. But I also feel the same as Michael. The energy is just incredible. We have so many people that have got their hand and ask you questions. So we're definitely going to get to that in 1 second. I just wanted to quickly ask you, what do you think of models like Tom's shoes? Is this something that's caught your eye?
Tom's are the like canvas pumps, the recyclable. You don't really know those.
I think Julie's kept this away from me.
No, he doesn't know.
Okay, yeah, were you? Yeah, they basically give a shoe away. Every time someone buys one.
They're like canvas pumps.
Okay. But Julie's saying they're pumps, the canvas pumps, and well, I mean, these are marketing ideas, and if you want to get your name out there, you do something slightly different. You can't be totally different. If you be totally different, you could fall flat on your face. If you're lucky enough to find something. nothing's out there like aerobics that we fell into. Aerobics. There's nothing out there anymore. So you've got to look at the bits and pieces of innovations. And like you say, if you go work on it and keep it simple, keep it simple, stupid. It's really a good thing to live by, but don't make it complicated. Like I said, they're nice, simple shoes, these, and they give one away for everyone. Yeah, which is an idea. And I think that you can be young. When Jeff and I started, I was 23, Jeff 25. We were undefeatable. Nobody could touch it now. So what? We're going to win. It's not a question. I mean, right now, I've had a lot of time to live, and I think at 85, I'm looking back on that and saying, Joe, how did you do that? How did you manage to do that? How did you get on all those planes with just a bunch of American Express travelers checks? That was it. No telephones, no communications. You had to do it. You had to make those decisions when you got there. You couldn't refer to anybody. And if I wanted to telephone back to the UK, quite often wherever I was, it would be a 24-hour wait before the calls. And it's amazing.
You never had a moment, Joe, where you wanted to give up. There wasn't in that process. There was like, this is too tough. I'm on too many flights. The complaints we all have as entrepreneurs. Did you ever almost quit?
No, I don't think I ever had that. I think it was, look, I'm enjoying this. I'm winning. And the things when I went in and when I had problems, well, this is just another experience. This is just something that adds to the wealth of knowledge that you can accumulate on how do you handle something. You handle it. And I think the challenges, I had enough challenges there. Now, I didn't work for anybody. I did. I worked for Reebok. And then it was Reebok. Reebok was the name that I wanted. I didn't want to sell Joe Foster. Never did. Maybe more now, probably, in order to hopefully help me. But it was always, what can we do for Reebok? And I felt it a challenge. Okay, not every day is a good day. No, some days you wonder. But I can never remember feeling that all you needed is just turn around and come back again. Okay, turn around, come back. Find the answer. It was more or less always, the glass is half full, not half empty. It was always, we can do something here. So, and I guess maybe there's a bit of stupidity in that, maybe a bit of, no, I won't give up. And I think it was just kept going. You could always find the answer. That was the thing. It was not a question that you hit a brick wall. There was always something. Even when we went out of business, as our distributor went out of business, and I had to charge down 100 miles to pick up 5,000 pairs of shoes, then we had to sell them. But we set about it. Let's just sell those shoes. And we got more money for those shoes than we were asking from a wholesaler, from the people who made them for. So we made money out of it. And how can we do this better? How can we improve things? So I don't think I ever did face that day where it was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I don't think it ever came to me or occurred to me.
That's anybody out there who loves what you do, don't give up. Let's get to some audience questions. Just before we do, so I can see a lot of people waiting patiently to ask a question. You can win Joe's book. You just ping us with what you loved about Joe's story, and you can win Joe's book. In addition, we're doing something special. Joe's going to sign a pair of Reeboks. And by the way, just before we start this broadcast, I said he's going to sign a pair of Adidas. That's just how good a host I am. But we're going to sign a pair of Reeboks. Joe's going to sign a pair of Reeboks, the original Reeboks, and someone can win them. And all you have to do is tell us the line in his book, the first line in his book, in a tweet. If you are the first person to say in a tweet the first line to his book, you'll get a signed pair of Reebok shoes from Joe. Right. Not Adidas. No one wants Adidas. So anyway, Alex, you are up. You've been waiting patiently. Do you have a question for Joe?
Yeah, I do. Oh, absolutely amazing. Much like Simon Michael, I sat back with a cup of coffee, enjoying that. Your passion for your journey to what you achieved is just absolutely amazing. And to hear your resilience there, just answering that question around would you ever quit? I think a lot of entrepreneurs will resonate with that.
Thank you, Alex.
The question around your leadership team, and when you first started out, I think I've got a lot of my family members that work within our organisation. We all dream of being able to build a global organization as a family and an extended family as you start to scale. Once you, I'm just interested to hear from you around the dynamics of your leadership team with your family, with your brother, and some of the key hires that you may have targeted early doors of your growth.
Yeah, well, really, as far as the family, I had two brothers. Unfortunately, neither one was today. But Jeff and I just got along very well. We'd seen our father and uncle how they were just at each other's throats. They were brothers as well. But we never seemed to do that. I think either we unconsciously learned that lesson that, look, if you have a problem, just talk about it. Funnily enough, we never had a problem. For whatever reason, I did everything apart from being in the factory. I started in the factory but Jeff didn't want to do with those things. He didn't want to do anything to do with bookkeeping, anything to do with advertising, anything to do with marketing. He just, you do that. You do all the traveling. He did come to America a couple of times because we, once we got to a certain size, that was great. But then I had another brother who was 14 years younger than me. He didn't come in the company until much later because we were growing by then. And he did become part of the company for quite some time. But he was never really, as it were, close to the business side. He came in and he took a role, which was okay. But we'd grown to such a size by then, and the business was so big. But unfortunately, and with Jeff, the unfortunate thing is that we worked together so well. I'd done such a lot of traveling, and we just got down to getting our 5-star shoe. I just got Fireman signed up to being our distributor. Unfortunately, he fell ill and he died. That at the time was an absolute tragedy, because what we had shared, and Jeff had looked after something and kept something so stable and solid, but suddenly he was gone. But I think that what that did to me, though, was probably to give me more energy. I had to finish that, which is what I did.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yes, phenomenal story, Jerry. Amazing. I've just ordered your book, and I did it just before Simon mentioned that you were potentially giving one away. So if I get 2, then I'll give it to a friend.
Oh, you could always cancel it.
I'll certainly want to contribute. I feel like the least I can do after this is the last hour.
Thank you, Alex. Great stuff. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alex. Great question. I'm just going to move you back to the audience just so we can make space for everybody else. But I put the basically instructions and everything for the giveaways right in my bio. So if you tweet the first line of Joe's book, Shoemaker, and tag us on Twitter, we'll go through those. I think we'll just pick a random person because I don't want it to just necessarily be the first person, because we might have a few others tweeting this out, and we'll pick one at random on Twitter to win the signed Reebok shoes. And then for the second one, what we'll do is I put my community and texting number in my bio as well. So for the free copy of Joe's book, what we'll do is I'll ask a question here. I'll let some more people from the audience go, but at the end I'll ask a question, and the first person to text me with the correct answer will win the free copy of Joe's book. So that's how we'll do it. I'll make sure it's super clear for everyone. And make sure you guys are following Joe too on Instagram and Twitter, sharing this out, tweeting, writing on Instagram, and tagging him how amazing this his story has been. And if you learned anything from this, we'd love to hear those stories, and we'd love to reshare them and repost them as well on all the different channels. But Harriet, it looks like you're up next, and I'd love to have you share your question for Joe.
Thanks. Thank you for this, Joe. I'm young enough to have grown up with Reebok Classic. But yeah, it was a massive part of my sort of childhood and early adulthood. I think my my question for you, and you touched on it a little bit when you were talking about going over to America and college coaches. And I know that that's quite a difficult dynamic to navigate in terms of getting into like sports and coaching. What were some of the challenges that you had sort of breaking into that American market? And was there any point at which you sort of thought, you know what, maybe it's just better to be a UK brand or a European brand in the American market alone?
Right. Well, I guess it's a matter of ambition, and I guess it's a matter of challenge. For me, it was a big challenge. We needed to, well, in my mind, I needed to grow this company. What can we do? Where is the next level? And I think always the next level is now the challenges for me was that, and I had 6 failed attempts to get into the US market. And some of the letters that I exchanged, I have some of those letters, and they're amazing. And I think maybe some of this is in the book, but a guy called Shu Lang, I spent maybe 5 years trying. And we seem to, I don't know, we never seem to have any problems with our product at home. We had lots of problems when we were sending across to America, and I don't know why. Maybe it was a bit like wine. Maybe the shoes didn't travel. For whatever reason, we always had those challenges. But for me, it was finding, well, why are we not successful? I guess I learned a few lessons. One is that the people that were coming to me and that I was working with, that they probably didn't have enough grip, enough knowledge of the market. They were probably working with a few athletes and a few people they knew in the hope that would grow exponentially from a small beginning. But it doesn't grow. America's a big, big country. And how do you get this across? So the one thing, and you know, if you believe in luck, believe in it. You make your own luck, of course you do. But Reebok were there when running took off in America. That's being in the right place, right time. We're lucky. Very, very lucky. Acknowledge your luck. And I acknowledge the luck that running took off. Then we had to look at that. We had to provide a 5-star shoe. Other companies outside of America may have had the same thought. And I know 2 or 3 UK companies just didn't make it. But then we were always perceived as an athletics company. Clark's, they tried to get into the business, but they're perceived as a street shoe, usually children. So the perception of your company, the perception of what you're trying to do is always very, very important. But then being there at the right time. As the running market grew, we had an opportunity. Runner's World was there as well, another opportunity. So it was a question, yes, design the right shoe. We could have failed. We could have got the wrong shoe. But Aztec did it. And since we did it, we did it. So that's a lot of luck. I can't tell you how to build the right shoe. Not now. I can't tell you, what your piece of luck is. It's there. Wherever you're looking, keep looking, because something is there. Just don't let it pass you by. This is what happens so much. So people think, oh, is that right? And by the time they've thought too much, it's gone. So getting into America, that was the focus came right down to get a 5-star shoe, because that, once it was in Runner's World, just introduced us. It just opened that door.
Thank you so much. That's such a wonderful answer. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Harriet, thanks so much for coming up. And I'm just going to move you back to the audience just so I can clear the space here. But really enjoyed that. And for people who are coming up or just tuned in, I did put the instructions for how to win the signed Reeboks and the book in my bio. If you just click my picture, you'll see that. But we can keep things moving with Jess and then Caleb, and we have about 20 minutes left. I know Joe has to get back to life, and we really, really appreciate his time and being here with us for already over an hour. But Jess, you're up next, and then Caleb.
Hi,
Hi, Jess.
I love listening to your chat. I'm interested to kind of go back to something that you said earlier around when you were running Reebok, how you had to, anytime you wanted to speak to someone, you really had to get on a plane and go and see them. And I'm interested to know now they're so connected, right? And we're all so available at all times of the day and night. Do you think that works to our detriment in any way?
No, not at all. We're living now, and what we have now, technology. Technology is technology. You've got to acknowledge technology. And had I been able to have a mobile phone, as we are now, or a computer, we didn't have that. Had I had that, well, what's next? Wow, technology is taking us everywhere. We have to acknowledge that this is giving you new opportunities. And we can't go back. Back in the 1950s and 60s, that was my time. That was my young time. When I was a youngster then, and it didn't bother me. I could do that. Nobody else could do different. Everybody was in that same boat. Now you've got technology. This is the best thing. I mean, COVID has been an incredibly difficult time to what COVID has done for technology and for communication is incredible. It's brought us 10 years forward. This would have taken so much longer. And now it's looking at, let's get the advantages. So, it's an advantage.
Yeah, I agree. I was just interested to hear your thoughts, so thank you so much.
That's okay, Jess.
Awesome. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Sam.
No, I was
going
going
to
to
do
the
the hosting job and say, Celeb, you're up next. Have you got a question for Joe?
Are you
Are you
there?
there, Celeb?
Oh, sorry. How are you? Thank you, Joe, for telling your story. That's really cool.
Okay.
My question was, my question was, in the story, you can explain how the Joe Foster Kicks with that company, it was very focused on that one product that your grandfather kind of came up with, I guess. Why did it take the company so long to kind of expand from that one product? And really, why did it take the company so long to look at like other avenues, other spaces within sports? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. Are we referring to my grandfather? We're going back to J.W. Foster's, or are we coming to Reebok?
I'm so sorry. Say that again.
Yeah. Is your reference back to my grandfather when he sort of designed or invented, developed the first pair of running spikes? And are you referring back to that?
I would say kind of past that, because I think you mentioned when I think his father and brother took the company over, and yourself, he was kind of, you were still selling that, but you were also trying to grow from there. But I guess it's past your grandfather's time. Yeah, well, I think I get the gist of where we're going. The thing is that my grandfather was really known for his spike shoes, and the J.W. Foster company were known for running. But they had a catalogue of product. They had cycle shoes, they had boxing, they had wrestling. They had an enormous amount of product. Of course, they were not in America, so they didn't have the American sports, which is different. And those sports in the UK and probably in Europe are quite small. And athletics, more international. Track and field was something international. So that's what they got known for. And even when we started, we would have loved to have been into soccer. We couldn't. Soccer was then tied up with Adidas. We had to spend whatever money we had and whatever time we had on an area of business that we knew we could excel in. And so that again is what we become known as. We become known in the running. But we did make soccer boots, we did make cycle shoes, we did try other things. But again, they were just diversions. And I think if you really want to go somewhere and you really make it big, what you have to do is to focus. If you can focus and get that growth, then once you've got the growth and you've got the recognition, you can then branch out. As we'll say that Adidas and Nike branched out. And Reebok did before being taken over by Adidas. I mean, Reebok did quite nicely in basketball. And
and they were also with the NFL. But you then have to have the right management. And I left the company because I thought I'd done what I could do. You need other people. You need other people's take on things. You need other minds, and that's how your business will expand. Expand into something else. I'd spent my life really developing an athletics company, but it had to develop beyond that to be something big. And you need to do. But I think it's the fact that you need, certainly when you're small, you need to focus.
Well said. Well said. And thank you. I'm going to pronounce this name wrong. Forgive me, because I have dyslexia. I always pronounce people's names wrong. But Ho Yan, is that right? Ho Yan?
Ho Yan, yes.
Ho Yan, wonderful. Have you got a question for Joe?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much for setting this up, Joe. It's an honor to meet you. Thank you so much for an amazing story. I have a question about the future. Having experienced so many changes and growth with Reebok and with different generations, how do you see the pattern of similar brands in the next, let's say, 20, 25 years? I'm asking this specifically from the standpoint of audience experiences and the range of products they offer. Do you foresee a mass customization of experiences and integration with other markets and disciplines? Thank you so much.
Okay, great. I think that looking into the future is the crystal ball, and is your crystal ball clear? Can you see all the future's bringing? I'd like to be in the present and try and make the most of what we've got now, because there's a lot of things going on there. What do I see for the future? Well, if we get away from just simple footwear, will we see stadiums? Do we need stadiums? Or is the photographic technology such that we could almost be on the pitch, on the field, almost be taking part, and that could happen in your living room. It could happen in front of you. Audience participation can be something that comes in from wherever you want. It's amazing where technology is leading us. So I think your answer to this is where are we going with technology? I think the technology is the one thing that you've got to follow. And if you can predict where the technology is going, you could predict where people will go, because we're becoming more automated. People are having more time to do things, to participate, and that is only going to grow. So ever since I've been involved in sport, or in, let's say, entertainment, whatever it is, way back in the 1950s, we never had a bad year. We never had a year until COVID came on that affected our growth, the growth of the company, the involvement. So it's more people having more time, and there's a lot of brains out there, a lot of good minds out there that can think of what's next. And there are many, many things, and participating, well, everybody's going to be participating in something somewhere. And so where does it go? Your imagination is probably better than mine. And maybe I've had a better imagination when I was in my 20s than I do now. But I can see today that this world and the world we live in, the world of sport, entertainment, pastime, that is something that is growing all the time. There are challenges, but the growth is out there. And if you like being involved in that area, and yes, there's no limit.
Thank you so much. That was brilliant. Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure.
Yeah, Joe, I actually I just quoted what you said there. I'm going to tweet this out because I mean it's so powerful. You said, I just want to highlight this. If you can predict where the technology is going, you can predict where the people will go. And that is something that I hope everyone takes away from this. And for someone who's 85 years old to have that foresight and to be this on top of things with technology, and it's incredible for me to I'm blown away at how just up to date and you're so on top of things. It's actually pretty phenomenal. Even people my age and younger, I don't think understand technology and the way things are going as much as you. So I'm just blown away continually during this. So thanks so much, Puyan. I'm going to move you back to the audience. And next up, we have Nick.
Hey, thanks, Michael and Simon, for putting this together, moderating. And Joe, nice to meet you. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing okay, thank you, mate.
Absolutely, yeah. So actually, really like Puyan's question is actually something I had kind of teed up to ask, but I was going to kind of dive a little deeper on it. Curious what, I started one of the largest sports communities here on Clubhouse and kind of see a lot of different innovations, but I was just kind of curious what, your take is on NFTs and some of these other technologies that are integrating into speaker markets where you have a speaker drop and then you have a digital speaker as well. And kind of what is going to be that next number one sports brand? Like, what is that going to look like? But, to simplify it, like, what do you make of, digitalization of speaker drops and other NFTs and everything happening on right now, just from a technical standpoint?
Stop talking acronyms.
I think that these things are all so new, also, should we say, driven by a younger audience, driven by what you want today. Yeah. It's passing me by. it has to pass me by. Something to do. It's but this is what happens with technology. You're able to do these things. You're able to get your message over. I'd like to do this. I'd like to put this. And this is the wonder of technology, and that's when I come back to it. That you can tell me, I can't tell you what it is. Yeah, I just know that technology is taking it and it moves forward fast. And you keep going. Just keep going, keep pushing that technology because it's going beyond me. It really is.
Appreciate that. Any sports that you're continuing to watch and play? Just kind of curious.
Well, at 85, with a new hip and a new knee and a few different bits and pieces that you find that age takes its toll up. It means that I can't play many sports these days, but I do watch. In fact, later today, I'll be watching rugby. We've got rugby union back on. I think we've got France versus England, which will be quite a challenge. So I watch rugby, yes, and I'm a keen follower of Formula 1. So yes, I think now when we can see these sports, I think it's wonderful to be able to watch, as we can watch now. So yeah, I would watch any sport, and I think my wife would tell me that I'd watch paint dry if it was a sport.
Yes, he would.
There's an untapped market, Joe. There's another idea. Making paint exciting again,
That's it.
Make paint great again.
Make paint great again, yes.
I don't want to take too much time, Joe. I appreciate that. And continue to do great work and spread your message to take your time.
It's a pleasure, Nick. It really is.
Thank you, Nick. Karen, you're up. Do you have a question for Joe?
Yeah, I have actually a question for Joe and comment. Joe, I cannot wait to read your book. I'm Karen Russell and the daughter of Celtics and NBA icon Bill Russell. And I have a lot of gratitude for Joe because I have a lot of Reebok swag from the years that my dad had his deal with you.
Right.
One of the things that I remember about Reebok and admire about Reebok is the Reebok Human Rights Award. You've done a lot of great things for people fighting for human rights around the world. And I just wondered if there was a favorite recipient or a story about the Human Rights Award. I really admire your advocacy on that front. And I'm Karen Kenyatta Russell. I'm finishing the game.
Well, nice to speak to you. Lovely. Yes, I think they've just actually set this back up again, the Human Rights Award. They've just actually started again. Who is it who's in charge of that? Is it
Erin?
Yeah, Erin Narlock has now taken on that role. I don't think you can actually call anybody in particular. I think they're all just so outstanding, and I think that Reebok has gone through that, of course, and has had done a lot of good. And I think, rather than trying to select any particular one as a favourite, I think that the idea was great, and I think the execution was even better. And I hope, because I know Erin, and she's a great girl, and she looks after that. I can well imagine that going to be some really good moves in the future.
Thank you very much for your time and welcome to Clubhouse.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Noel, last but not least, we have to let Joe go on and do his thing. And so, Noel, you are our last one. But last but not least, of course, Noel. Hello.
I know.
So, John stuck in the car park for God's sake, hold on. This just looks the plan's not like that.
Stop showing off, Noel. Showing off always, Noel.
I was going to say thanks for telling us the story, man. You're a true British gentleman, but it sounds great. It's been really exciting.
That's a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, and we were just talking about Gymshark earlier, Noel, and Joe was very complimentary about what you guys have done over there. But yeah, I don't know if you know how you got into the apparel business actually yourself, Noel. But do you have any questions for Joe?
I think the cool thing about it, again, I think a lot of people aren't acutely aware about the British roots that Reebok has. I think it's definitely inspiration to what we do, because we want to be what Nike's to Portland and what Adidas to Germany. We want to be that to the UK. Joe was flying that flag before we were, so yeah, big inspiration.
Thank you.
Well said, Noel. Yes, Joe, thank you for making American people realize they can buy British products. In your story earlier, I also love the point you were making around how they didn't want to buy. And, you know, frankly, like myself and everyone in the audience, there's so many hands up still. We have so many more questions. And I think we're just all going to have to buy your book if we want to know more. And so, you know, thank you to the 560 people in the room now. Thank you to the 22,000 people I've got listening on TikTok. And thank you mainly, Joe, to you. For coming on, giving us your time, sharing your energy, sharing your passion. And I'm going to say it one more time. When you're ready to buy Reebok back, I'm ready there to stand by your side and help you. So let me know. And Michael, special thanks to you for letting me be here today as well.
Incredible. Well, thank you very much for that. I've enjoyed it. I really have. And well, many more to come. And who knows? What do I want to take Reebok to? Topic.
Yeah, we could have that conversation again. I'm going to send out notes from everything you've said, Joe. If anyone that wants to grab notes, I'll be tweeting them out now, and we'll be releasing the podcast later on Michael's platform as well. So Joe, again, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, so much. And yeah, for people who had questions too, please just tweet them out or tag him, and I'm sure him or his wife, who's been so phenomenal and so helpful, Julie, with all of this and scheduling everything, will reply and try to answer as much. But yes, definitely check out Joe's book. You can just find it right on his Instagram page, and also by going to his website as well. I want to be respectful of Joe's time. Thank you again, Joe, so much for being here. Everyone, please give him a shout out on social media. Follow him, buy his book. Incredible story. I have so much to digest from this because I've taken in so much. This has been one of my favorite interviews I've ever listened to, let alone help to be a part of. So really, really thank you so much, Joe, for being here and being a part of this.
Thank you, Michael. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Joe. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Simon, anything you want to say to wrap things up?
No, I didn't want to interrupt you, but my 3-year-old just shouted out Reebok, Daddy Reebok, and I don't think he's ever. You've got the younger generation now saying the brand, Joe. So yeah.
Yes.
Thanks. Totally. Yeah. Thanks so much.
That's all right. It's been a pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks, Joe. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Entrepreneur Show. If you'd like to connect and network with other like-minded people, entrepreneurs, investors, freelancers, and startups, check out our app or go to our website, joinentre.com. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. If there's anything that we can do to help you, please reach out to us and let us know.